Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm parent coach, mother of four, and your host, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where you will learn that even for parenting experts like me, there is no such thing as a perfect parent, and that fabulous behavior and amazing relationships are right on the other side of that realization. If you're working your butt off to do right by your kid, honor yourself, and go beyond the BS around you, you are my person, and this podcast is for you. Full disclosure, I'm a sometimes potty talker, and we deal with the challenge of raising kids here. This podcast is for grown-ups, so stick your earbuds in and let's do this. Well, hey there, listener. This is the very first episode of Confessions of a Parent Coach, and I'm going to share with you my very first confession, which is that I'm a little bit nervous. I'm kind of figuring it out as I go. I've never made a podcast before, even though I've been on a million podcasts. So here I go, figuring it out as I go, which to me is very, very analogous to parenting. Am I right? Figuring it out as we go. But each episode, I'm going to start with a little confession for you from my own experience, either as a parent coach or as a parent myself. And today, my confession for you is this. I get accused by my friends and family all the time of hating motherhood, even though I do not hate motherhood at all. It is my highest bliss. I love it. I've got 4 kids and I relish all of my experiences with them. But I can understand why my friends and family could think that I absolutely hate it. And the reason why is because I bitch about it all the time. And that's what I want to talk about today is this concept of I love my kid, but ... What comes after that? Because I can't tell you how many of my clients or potential clients I meet for a consultation or an intake call, and they all start out with, I really love my kid. My kid is amazing. My kid has all these incredible qualities, but they feel like they need to kind of couch what they're about to say because they know they are going to spend the next hour just utterly slaying their kid to me, telling me all of these horrible things that are going on, all the challenges they face, the things that make them want to pull their hair out, and they feel guilty about it. That whole like, I love my kid, but thing is so common. And I think that the best way to kick off this podcast is to talk about this concept of like, we know it, we get it. You love your kid. Of course you do. And there's this entire world of experiences and feelings and frustrations and challenges to parenting that we know we're not supposed to reveal to our kids. We're not supposed to say these things that we say to our friends, to our kids, but we still really need to say them. We really, really, really need to say them. It's so important to be able to laugh about, scream about, vent about, pull your hair out about your kids in a safe space so that you don't actually act on all of those feelings and that negative experience that you're having. And I actually have a funny story about this. Like, I have a dear, dear friend. We have been friends for decades. Her name is Sasha. We are like amazingly tight. We vacation together. We are super close. And a long time ago, we almost had a falling out because Sasha is very different than I am. Sasha is the most positive person I've ever met. And she does such a great job of like staying in gratitude and appreciating what she has and seeing the silver lining in everything. And that is not me. I'm like a problem identifier because I like to solve problems. That's my whole life. As a parent coach, what do? I solve problems for my clients all the time. And I like to talk about problems and solve problems and really go into those dark places. And we really had a struggle in our friendship a long, long time ago because I would come to her, oh my God, okay, I'm hanging out with my best friend. Listen to this. Listen to what this little stinking kid did to me. Or I just want to drop kick this kid into traffic. I am going to like push this kid out my car and keep on driving. That is how I feel about this kid, and talking all about like whatever was going on with my kids, which at the time they were super little. I got old kids now. My oldest kid is actually 18, believe it or not. But my at the time with Sasha, I probably was talking about toddlers and babies. And Sasha would be like, no, don't say that. You don't really mean that. Of course you don't want to do that. Don't talk that way. And I just finally one day I like broke and I was like, Sasha, stop trying to tell me how to feel. I really feel this way. This is how I feel. And I got to tell you what I want to do to these kids so that I don't actually do it. And that is something that I feel like some of us really just don't give ourselves permission to do. And in those consultations, when I have these moms who are like wringing their hands almost about saying, negative things that might cast their kids in a bad light, I always have to, totally, hopefully evaporate that anxiety and say, listen, this is a safe space. You're here because you love your kid. You do not need to tell me that you love your kid, because people who don't love their kids don't set up consultations with me. You're here because you love your kids. That's a given. And now let's talk about all that other stuff. And for a lot of people, that is like a huge load off of their minds to be able to do that. So, wow, this is the safe space to completely let it all hang out. You're going to hear me use big grown up words. You're going to hear me making fun of my kiddos and making fun of just the situations we find ourselves in as parents, all of that stuff. This is not just a bitch fest. There's a method to our madness, right? There's a catharsis that comes from venting, and there's another side to that. When you get to the other side of that, now all of a sudden creative solutions become available to you. You start thinking about these things in totally different ways. So you come to me and say, I love my kid, and I want to hear it, the raw, the gritty version of that. I want to hear that you're ready to drop kick your kiddo. Today, I talked to a mom who was like, don't hate me for this. That's another one I hear. Don't hate me for this, but I am at my wit's end with this kid, and I just want to get in my car and keep on driving. And I resonated with that so much. There were some times in my parenting where I'm like, I used to be super into running, and I would just be like, I'm going to go run and never come back. I'm just going to keep on running. I'm going to be like Forrest Gump this situation because I want to get out of here. So there is, on the other side of that venting, all of a sudden an awakening, new beginnings, new ideas, creative solutions. And the reason why is because when we are so upset about something, or so triggered, or so stirred up, or so scared, or so worried, or so angry, whatever the emotion is, when we are in that place, we're totally dysregulated. Our nervous systems aren't functioning right. The front part of our brain, which is like that rational problem solving part of our brain, isn't working. And when we can actually get those emotions out, process those emotions in a safe space, all of that stuff, all of a sudden, the parts of our brain and body that were offline before click back on. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay, so I'm ready. Also, you have more energy, right? Like you're not using all this energy to just like bottle up everything inside. All of a sudden, you're free. There's that catharsis. I was talking with a girlfriend recently about how sometimes you just need to like watch a sad movie and cry your eyes out, and like it feels so cleansing. Like after I've cried like that, I feel like, okay, a little bit like a wrung out dish rag, I'll be honest, but also just like, whew, fresh start, fresh beginning. Here I am on the other side. It's kind of like the rainstorm has cleared and the sun is coming out again, right? And so this podcast, while we're real and raw and gritty, we are not just bitching for bitching's sake. This is all about focusing on the outcome. Where are we going to get once we have processed our emotions and come back to our baseline? Because the truth is, like, once again, people do not come to me because they don't love their kids. They come to me because they love their kids like crazy. And their kids are going through something that they just really don't know how to handle. And it's really, really stirring them up. We got to deal with that whole stirred up piece for sure. And then on the other side of that is, okay, now how do we handle it? And that's where all the skill building and problem solving and troubleshooting and creative solutions come in. And, I'm here for all of that. It's my job to help you while you're screaming and venting and having your emotional catharsis. And then it's my job to hold your hands afterwards and say, okay, now what? What are we going to do about this toddler who's tantruming? What are we going to do about this teenager who's sneaking out at night? What are we going to do about this adult kid, which is someone I talked to today also, someone with an adult kid still living at home who refuses to get a job? Like all of the things, we're going to talk about it, whether we're talking about tantrums or homework or friendships or frenemies, all the fun stuff that happens with kiddos. There is a path forward, and it all comes on the other side of that nervous system regulation, calming down, expressing your emotions, not being perfect, right? Here I am, a parenting expert. I am a coach. I'm doing this stuff 24/7. I am immersed in this work, even in my sleep, and I still screw up on the regular. And you're going to get to hear all about that stuff. I screw up as a coach, I screw up as a mom. Perfection is not the missing ingredient in your parenting, everybody. I promise it isn't. So, what I want you to take home from today is, how can I be imperfect? How can I express myself? It's okay, all those negative emotions you're having. Go find your place. I want you to call a girlfriend and bitch, bitch, bitch about this stuff and see what happens on the other side of that. And the last thing I want to do is answer a question from a client. Eventually, I'll be answering questions from listeners, but I'm creating listeners right now. So if you want to get your question answered, go ahead and send me an email. You can contact me through my website, which is AnnKaplanParentCoach.com, and put podcast question in the subject line. I will love to answer your questions on the podcast. And today, our question is, how do I express my emotions to my kid without dumping all over them? I love this question. It is a classic question, and it's the answer to this question is fundamental because it helps us avoid creating codependency tendencies in our kids. And most of us were raised in a very different time where the predominant flavors of parenting were punitive parenting and codependency. We are trying to transcend that and evolve past that today, right, everybody? So, how do we express our emotions to our kids without dumping our emotions on them? And the first thing I'm going to say is that when your kids are super young, it's really hard to do that, because even if you are doing everything quote unquote right, your kiddo is wired to be very concerned about your emotions. A little kid is very much concerned with their parents' emotions because it has to do with how safe they feel in their relationship with them. So even if you are nailing it in the delivery, you still might be accidentally creating an opportunity for your kiddo to feel responsible for your emotions. So usually when kids are super young, I say, as much as you possibly can, take care of your feelings on your own and be as grounded and centered as you possibly can be for your kids. And also, guess what? You're not going to be able to do it. Remember, perfection is not the missing ingredient. Like, you're definitely going to be emotional around your kid. So it's not bad for your kid to see a full range of emotion. It's not, especially as they get older, I would say not only is it not bad, it's good for them. And so how do we do that? And I like to give tangible, actionable stuff. I take these esoteric, airy-fairy concepts and put them into stuff you can use. Rubber hits the road. And this is a really great example of that. The best way to express your emotions to your kiddo without dumping your emotions on them is to take radical accountability. How do we do that? I like to encourage my clients to use 4 steps. We use I feel statements, those really corny, old-fashioned things that we learned maybe like in 8th grade or something like that back in the day. They're really real and they really work. Most people don't think I feel statements work because they only do the first part where they say, I feel angry when you leave your backpack on the floor. That's great. There's no accountability in that sentence. All you're really saying is, you did this thing and now I'm angry. But if you keep going with an I feel statement, there's so much more, because the second part of an I feel statement is to say why you feel that way. And this is important. When you answer the question, why do I feel that way? It's something about you that makes you feel that way. So instead of saying, I feel angry when you leave your backpack on the floor, I feel that way because you never listen to me. I've told you a million times. I'm sick of repeating myself, and you broke the rule. That is not accountability either. But radical accountability looks like, I feel angry when I see your backpack on the floor. I feel that way because I'm really concerned about cleanliness in my house, and sometimes I overreact. Holy cow, I just expressed my emotion to my kid and made it entirely about me and my situation, not dumping it on my kid. I'm taking 100% ownership for my emotions. And the really cool thing about I feel statements, there's actually 2 more steps to the I feel, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because that's like too much for a podcast. But even if you just do those first 2 steps, I feel this way when such and such happens. I feel that way because of something about me, which what I'll tell you, right? When you do that, not only have you expressed yourself in a way that doesn't dump on your kid, you've also started to influence the way that you think about your emotions. When you force yourself to think about, okay, what is it about me that's creating this emotion inside of myself? You are putting these tiny little deposits into your kind of like psychological bank account so that over time you're literally rewiring your brain to the point where ideally, when I'm in my best place, I do think this way. I realize like my emotions are about me, and I can tell you how many eye rolls my kids have gotten, or how many eye rolls my kids have given me, I should say, when they've heard me say over and over again, no one can make you feel anything. You feel that way because of something that's going on inside of you. But guess what? Now, if my kids are teenagers and they say that stuff to me, and they say that stuff before they know I'm about to say it to them. So I'll hear, I know, no one can make me feel anything. But it's true. And guess what? Oh my gosh, I have like 15-year-olds walking around on this planet who have a more emotional intelligence than a lot of adults that I know because they actually own their emotions. So try the I feel statement. That is my answer to this question. How do I express my emotions without dumping on my kid? I feel statements, but you got to do it for real with lots and lots of ownership. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of psychobabble. I hope that was great for you, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye. The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.